Hello, everyone. I'm here with a wet head. It's been a crazy morning. I've been trying to get everything all up and ready for our online applications and everything like that. And so we have been having lots of meetings and with the computer. So you have to excuse me. It's been kind of a rushed morning. So welcome to St. Bernard's Books with Mrs. Brickson. Again, I'm Laura Brickson. I'm the principal at St. Bernard's School here in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. And we are on our the last day of our Judy Blume Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. Yes. And so we are just, it's tough. I know. Please remember, if you can, to please write in here, to please say hello in the comments. And hopefully they'll show up. Like last time they didn't show up for me, it was goofy. But today is Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday, April 29th, 2020. I do have to think about what day of the week it is. It is a little crazy. Oh, Mrs. Ayers on. And Axel, we got our normals. We got our regulars. Kendall's rocking it. Axel's here. Very good. So let's get started with the day. Let's get started with the day and see what's what. We have to get past the ads. Come on, get going. Get excited. Let's see here. How come this is taking so long? All right, here we go. You should know the words by now, right? Make sure you get the hand motions in too, okay? Oh. Oh.
Difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world.
Awesome. Wonderful. Hope you get started with a little bit of a dancing around. And there goes Grace. Grace, you gotta come here. Come here. We have my middle baby, Grace, who is now 19 years old. Look at
walking up the stairs.
Look at all this stuff. She's got the camera.
Yeah, I got a pencil sharpener.
Markers, pens.
Pencils.
Right.
A whole bunch of paper.
Remember that she is an artist.
Indeed, I am an artist. I'm not an artist. I'm an artiste.
Artiste.
And I would appreciate if you pronounced it that way. If you treated me like. Okay.
Gracie gets her weirdness from her father.
And you.
I also taught her in fourth grade, so sorry, that's how I kind of messed her up. Oh, Carol says, miss you yesterday, was working. We did miss you, Carol. Mwah. Miss you, Carol. So anyways, I should have had Grace stay here and do the joke because she is queen of the puns. She is perfect at writing her own puns. It's crazy. She's just really good at it. So what has ears but can't hear? What has ears but can't hear? A cornfield. A cornfield, get it? Corn, ears of corn. Ears of corn. Oh, my hair is very wet. Yes. We have, what have ears but cannot hear? A cornfield. Yes. Oh, Mrs. Zare says hi, Grace. She says hi. I don't know if you hear that before. Corn! Mrs. Brickell's on! Yay, Mrs. Brickell. I miss seeing you, Shelly. And you too, Beth. Remember, guys, if for some reason you miss out on any of it, or you want to go back and listen to Tales from Fourth Grade Nothing again, you can go to our YouTube library page. It's St. Bernard's Books with Mrs. Brickson, and you can look at that, or you can also just remember to go back on this Facebook page. And with that, we're going to get started. Our last chapter. Okay. So remember, last time we heard, excuse me, Peter's father works in advertising. And so since his mother was going to go and help with her sister's new baby, Peter and Fudge went to the father's advertising agency. And they were auditioning different little boys or little kids for riding on a bike. Well, the owner of the bike company was just like, I want Fudge, and so then Fudge ended up being in this commercial. But remember, he didn't want to do it. So, of course, Peter had to do it first. And then Fudge ended up being in the commercial. So there we go. There, so there, Fudge got his little chance of being famous. Chapter 9, Just Another Rainy Day, page 97, if you're following along. The next day, it rained. I should have read this yesterday when it was actually raining. The next day, it rained. My father asked me how I'd like to go to the movies. Just me, I asked. No, all three of us, he said. Fudge is too young to go, I said. Don't you think so? Maybe, but I can't think of anything else to do with him, and that will take up a few hours. You could give him some socks, I suggested. You know how he loves to play with socks. Socks won't last the whole afternoon, said my father. That's why I thought of the movies. Well, what do we see, Dad? My father checked his New York magazine. A Bear's Life is playing in the neighborhood. How does that sound? What's it about? I asked. Bear's Life, I guess, my father said. It's rated G. I was thinking of a good Western with lots of action, or a picture rated R where you can't get in unless you can't get in if you're under 17 unless you're with a parent. But my father had made up his mind. A Bear's Life it is. I suggested that my father get Fudge cleaned up because by then he was looking kind of messy. I didn't think my father even put him in his pajamas last night. He's been wearing the same polo shirt ever since my mother left yesterday morning. By 1 o'clock, we were ready to go. All three of us wore raincoats and rubbers, and Father took his big black umbrella. One thing about New York, it's hard to get a cab when it's raining. But the movie theater wasn't very far away. My father said the walk would do us all good. And there were a lot of puddles, especially if it wasn't too cold out. It feels nice when you get the wet on your face. I jumped over the puddles. My father avoided them too. But not Fudge. He jumped right into everyone and splashed around like a little duck. By the time we got into the movie theater, the bottoms of his pants were soaked. My father took him to the men's room. He stuffed a bunch of paper towels up each pant leg so Fudge wouldn't have to sit around wet. At first, Fudge complained. But when my father bought him a big box of popcorn, he forgot about his stuffed pants. Right after we got settled in our seats, a big boy sat down in front of Fudge. So he had to change seats with my father. Now he was on the aisle. I was in the middle, and my father was on the other side. When the lights dimmed, Fudge said, "Ooh, Doc." I told him, "Be quiet, you can't talk in movies." "Okay, Peter," he said. When he started throwing popcorn. At first I didn't notice, but I wondered why the people in front of us were turning around every second. And then I heard Fudge whisper, "Pow, pow, pow." And I saw him throw a handful of popcorn. I poked my father. "He's throwing popcorn," I whispered. My father reached across me and tapped Fudge on the leg. "If you throw one more piece, I'm going to take it away from you." "No, throw," Fudge said very loud. "Shh," the people in front of us said. "Shush," Fudge said right back to them. "You see," I told my father, "he's too young for the movies. He doesn't understand." But from the moment the first bear came on the screen, Fudge sat still and watched. After a while, I forgot all about him and concentrated on the movie. It was much better than I thought it would be. It showed all these bear cubs and how they live. I'm not sure when I realized Fudge was gone. I guess it was when I turned to ask him if he had any popcorn left. I'd already finished mine and was still hungry. I was really surprised to see he wasn't there. I mean, 1 minute he was sitting right next to me, and the next minute he was gone. "Hey, Dad," I whispered to my father, "he's gone." "What?" my father asked. "Fudge is in his seat." My father looked over. Where'd he go? I don't know. I just noticed he was gone. Let me out, Peter. I'll help find him. Should I come too? I asked. No, you sit here and watch for the rest of the picture. He's probably wandering around by the candy counter. I stood up to let my father out. I wondered what my mother would think if she knew Fudge was lost in the movies. A few minutes later, the picture stopped, right in the middle of a scene. The soundtrack trailed off like a broken record. And the lights came on. And the audience let out a groan, and some kids called, "Boo! Boo!" Then my father and two ushers and a man in a suit came over to me. He was sitting right here, my father told him, pointing to the empty seat on the aisle. Well, the man in the suit said, we've checked the restrooms and the office. He is not behind the candy counter. We'll have to search the theater. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? We'll continue with our film in one moment. But first, we have to find a 3-year-old boy answering to the name of Fudge. Some people laughed when the man said his name. I guess Fudge does sound funny when you're not used to it. I thought, maybe he's kidnapped. Oh, would my mother be mad? That crazy kid, you can't ever even take him to the movies. And I thought, who would want to kidnap him anyway? What I do, Dad, I said. Why don't you just walk up and down the aisle and call to him, Peter? Okay, I said. Here, Fudge, I called, starting down the aisle. I sound like I was calling a dog. Come on out, Fudge. When I got to the first row and called, Here, Fudge, he popped out on me. He scared me so bad I yelled, Whoa! Hi, Peter, he said. Hey, I found him, I called. I found him. Here he is. And I turned to my brother. You dope. What are you doing way down here? And why are you sitting on the floor? I wanted to touch the bears, Fudge said, but bears are all gone. He spread out his arms and said, All gone, he said again. Father and the ushers and the man in the suit ran to us. Fudge, my father said, scooping him up. Are you all right? He wanted to pet the bears, I said. Can you beat that? Well, I guess we can continue the picture now, the man in the suit said. He cupped his hands around his mouth again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Our young man has been found safe and sound. Now we return to the conclusion of A Bear's Life. My father carried Fudge back to our seats. He held him in his lap for the rest of the show. I guess he was not taking any more chances. Later, when we got home, my father explained to Fudge that movies are like TV. It's just a picture. There's nothing to touch. Fudge listened, but I don't know whether he believed my father. I had a feeling he still thought those bears were in the theater somehow. I made up my mind that I would never take my little brother to the movies. Never. At least until he was 9 or 10. My father said he was going to cook us something special for dinner to celebrate finding Fudge at the movies. I thought that was really strange because as far as I know, my father can't cook anything. He doesn't even know where my mother keeps the peanut butter, the dishes, or the pots and pans. Lucky for him, I was there to show him. What are you gonna cook, Dad? A super duper omelet, he said. Omelet? I'm not sure Fudge and I like omelets. You'll like this one, my father said, humming as he gathered his ingredients together. Get me a big frying pan, Peter. Okay, I gave it to him. He melted some butter in it. Well, what's going in the super duper omelet? I asked, while Fudge was sat on the floor, banging 2 pot covers together. Well, the eggs, of course, my father said. Omelets are made of eggs. And what else? I asked. Oh, I think I'll make a mushroom omelet. Eggs and mushrooms? Yes, you'll love it. I'm not so sure. You'll see, Peter, my father said. I set up the table while my father cooked. I even put Fudge in his booster chair. While the omelet was done, my father brought it to us. He was still humming. That's a big omelet, I said when I saw it. It filled up the whole frying pan. How many eggs do you use? About a dozen, my father said. Mom only cooks one at a time, I told him. When you taste this, you'll know why I use them all up. You mean it's that good? I said. Go on, my father said as he served me. Taste it. I took a bite. It was awful. The worst thing I ever ate in my life. But my father was standing there grinning at me, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Well, he said. It's nice, I told him. Swallowing a chunk whole, I washed it down with a glass of milk. You see, your mother ought to experiment more. You'll learn to eat more different things. I don't think mother ever made a mushroom omelet, I said. My father put some on Fudge's plate. Then he served himself. Fudge shoved a lot in his mouth at once. I waited, figuring he'd choke on it. Instead, he said, "Oh, good." Father beamed. Fudge wasn't smart enough to fool my father, so he must have really liked it. But a kid who can eat flowers and swallow teeth wouldn't know much about omelets anyway. Then my father sat down and tasted his super-duper concoction. He not only choked on it, he spit it out. Oh no, he said, this was awful. Something went wrong. Maybe the eggs are rotten. Mom just bought them on Thursday, I said. Maybe it's the mushrooms then, my father said. Maybe it's how you cooked it, I suggested. My father jumped up from the table and threw the mushroom omelet into the garbage. Fudge started to cry. Want more? More? No, my father said, it wasn't very good. Fudge screamed, eat it or wear it! Eat it or wear it! Eat it or wear it! He flung his spoon across the room. It hit my mother's favorite plant. The dirt spilled all over the kitchen floor. Now you stop that, my father said to Fudge. I'm going to make us some nice peanut butter sandwiches, and then you're going to have a bath. Your mommy's coming home tomorrow, and we're going to show her how well Daddy manages all by himself. Peter, where does your mother hide the peanut butter? After supper, my father bathed Fudge. The only thing he decided not to do were the dishes. He stacked them in the sink and left them for my mother. Don't do that, kids. Don't do that. That would drive me crazy. On Sunday afternoon, we drove to the airport to meet my mother's plane. On the way there, my father said, wouldn't it be fun if we kept all the things we did over the weekend just a secret? I agreed not to say a word, and my mother was so glad to see us that she didn't even miss the dirty dishes in the sink. 6 weeks later, we were watching TV one night when the new Toddle Bite commercial came on. That's me, Fudge said. My mother looked up from a book she was reading. He does look like you, Fudge, but that's not really you. Oh, yes, he said, it's me, see? Mother squinted and looked harder. You know, Warren, she told my father, he really does look like Fudge. And then she thought, imagine another little boy like Fudge. It's Fudge, all right, I said. It's Fudge, all right, my brother repeated. We didn't tell you, dear, my father said. We thought that you'd like to be surprised. But that is Fudge. What? My mother began, like she couldn't believe it. You see, Mom, I began, remember that weekend you went to visit Aunt Linda? And then I stopped and thought about all the things that my mother didn't know, like the puddles Fudge splashed in, and the paper towels up his pants, and how he wanted to touch the bears, and the mushroom omelet, and Mr. Vincent and his big cigar, and Janet and her goldfish crackers. I looked at my father, and I just started to laugh. So did he. This is the last chapter, chapter 10, Dribble. Dribble. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but my daughter Eleanor is practicing her saxophone upstairs. Oh, I see Hermix are on. Okay, Mrs. Zare says that Hermix are on. Say hi. And then, oh, and I'm so bad, Axel, and that's too bad that you're not feeling well. Hopefully you're feeling better soon. Dribble. Remember, Dribble's the tortoise or turtle. I will never forget Friday, May 10th. It's the most important day of my life. It didn't start out that way. It started out ordinary. I went to school. I ate my lunch. I had gym. And then I walked home from school with Jimmy Fargo. We planned to meet at our special rock in the park as soon as we changed our clothes. In the elevator, I told Henry I was glad summer was coming. Henry said he was too. Me too. When I got out of my floor, I walked down the hall and opened the door to my apartment. I took off my jacket and hung it in the closet. I put my books on the hall table next to my mother's purse. I went straight to my room to change my clothes and check on Dribble. The first thing I noticed was my chain latch. It was unhooked. My bedroom door was open, and there was a chair smack in the middle of my doorway. I nearly tumbled over it. I ran to my dresser to check on Dribble. He wasn't there. His bowl in the rocks and the water was there, but Dribble was gone. I got really scared. I thought maybe he died when I was at school, and I didn't even know about it. So I rushed in the kitchen and hollered, "Mom, where's Dribble?" My mother was baking something. My brother sat in the kitchen floor banging pots and pans together. "Be quiet," I said to Fudge. "I can't hear anything with all this noise." "What did you say, Peter?" My mother asked me. "I can't find Dribble. Where is he?" "You mean he's not in his bowl?" my mother asked. I shook my head. "Oh, dear," my mother said. "I hope he's not crawling around somewhere. You know, I don't like the way he smells. I'm going to have a look in the bedrooms. You check in here, Peter." My mother hurried off. I looked at my brother. He was smiling. "Fudge, do you know where Dribble is?" I asked calmly. Fudge kept smiling. "Did you take him? Did you, Fudge?" I asked, not so calmly. Fudge giggled. He covered his mouth with his hands. I yelled, "Where is he? What did you do with my turtle?" No answer from Fudge. He banged his pots and pans together again. I yanked those pots out of his hand, and I tried to speak softly. "Now tell me where Dribble is. Just tell me where my turtle is. I won't be mad if you come and tell me. Come on, Fudge, please." Fudge looked up at me. "In tummy." "What do you mean in tummy?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "Dribble in tummy," he repeated. "What tummy?" I shouted at my brother. "This one," Fudge said, rubbing his stomach. "Dribble in this tummy, right here." I decided to go along with his game. "Okay." "How did he get in there, Fudge?" I asked him. Fudge stood up. He jumped up and down and sang, "I ate him, I ate him, I ate him." And he ran out of the room. My mother came back into the kitchen. "I can't find him anywhere," she said. "I looked in the dresser drawers, in the bathroom cabinets, in the shower, in the tub, and..." "Mom," I said, "how could you?" "How could I what, Peter?" Mom asked. "How could you let him do it?" "Let him do what, Peter?" Mom asked. "Let Fudge eat Dribble!" I screamed. My mother started to mix whatever she was baking. "Don't be silly, Peter," she said. "Dribble is a turtle." "He ate Dribble," I insisted. "Peter Warren Hatcher, stop saying that," Mom hollered. "Go ask him. Go ahead and ask him," I told her. Fudge was standing in the kitchen doorway with a big grin on his face. My mother picked him up and patted his head. "Fudgy," she said to him, "tell Mommy where your brother's turtle is." "In tummy," Fudge said. "What tummy?" Mom asked. "Mine!" And Fudge laughed. My mother put Fudge down on the kitchen counter where he couldn't get away from her. "Oh, you're fooling Mommy, right?" "No fool," Fudgy said. My mother turned very pale. "You really ate your brother's turtle?" Big smile from Fudge. "You mean that you put him in your mouth and you chewed him like this?" Mom made believe that she was chewing. "No," Fudge said. A smile of relief crossed my mother's face. "Of course you didn't. It was a joke." She put Fudge down on the floor and gave me a look. Fudge babbled, "No chew, no chew. Oh, oh. All gone, turtle. Down Fudgy's tummy." My mother stared at Fudge. Fudge, "You didn't," Mom said. "Did so," Fudge said. "No," Mom shouted. "Yes," Fudge shouted back. "Yes?" Mom asked weakly, holding on to a chair with both hands. "Yes," Fudge beamed. My mother moaned and picked up my brother. "Oh, no, my angel, my precious little baby. Oh, no." My mother didn't stop to think about my turtle. She didn't give Dribble a thought. She didn't even stop to wonder how my turtle liked being swallowed by my brother. She ran to the phone with the fudge tucked under one arm. I followed, and Mom dialed the operator and cried, "Oh, help, this is an emergency. My baby ate a turtle." "Stop that laughing," my mother told the operator. "Send an ambulance right away. 25 West 68th Street. Mom hung up. She didn't look too well. Tears were running down her face. She put Fudge down on the floor. I couldn't understand why she was so upset. Fudge seemed just fine. "Help me, Peter," Mom begged. "Get me blankets." I ran to my brother's room. I grabbed 2 blankets from Fudge's bed. He was following me around with that silly grin on his face. I felt like giving him a pinch. How could he stand there looking so happy when he had my turtle inside of him? I delivered the blankets to my mother. She wrapped Fudge up in them and ran to the front door. I followed and grabbed her purse from the hall table. I figured she'd be glad that I thought of that. Out in the hall, I pressed the elevator buzzer. We had to wait a few minutes. Mom paced back and down, up and down in front of the elevator. Fudge was cradled in her arms. He sucked his fingers and made that slurping noise I like. But all I could do was think of Dribble. Finally, the elevator got to our floor. There were 3 people in it besides Henry. "This is an emergency," Mom wailed. "The ambulance is waiting downstairs. Please hurry." "Oh, yes, Mrs. Hatcher, of course," Henry said. "I'll run her down as fast as I can. No other stops." Someone poked me in the back. I turned around. It was Mrs. Rudder. "What's the matter?" she whispered. "It's my brother," I whispered back. "He ate my turtle." Mrs. Rudder, Mrs. Rudder whispered that to the man next to her, and he whispered it to the lady next to him, who whispered it to Henry. I faced front and pretended that I didn't hear anything. My mother turned around with Fudge in her arms and said, "That's not funny. That's not funny at all." But Fudge said, "Funny, funny, funny, Fudgy, funny, Fudgy." Everybody laughed. Everybody, except for my mother. The elevator door opened. 2 men dressed in white were waiting with a stretcher. "This the baby?" one of them asked. Yes, it is," Mom sobbed. "Don't worry, lady. We'll be in the hospital in no time." "Come, Peter," my mother said, tugging at my sleeve. "We're going to ride in the ambulance with Fudge." My mother and I climbed into the back of the blue ambulance. I was never in one before. It was neat. Fudge kneeled on a cot and peered out through the window. He waved at the crowd of people that had gathered on the sidewalk. One of the attendants sat in the back of us. The other was driving. "What seems to be the trouble, lady?" the attendant asked. "This kid looks pretty healthy to me." "He swallowed a turtle," my mother whispered. "He did what?" the attendant asked. "Ate my turtle. That's what," I told him. My mother covered her face with her hanky and started to cry again. Hey, Joe," the attendant called to the driver. "Make it snappy. This one swallowed a turtle." "It's not funny," Mother insisted. I don't think so either, considering it was my turtle. We arrived at the back door of the hospital. Fudge was whisked away by 2 nurses. My mother ran after him. "You wait here, young man," another nurse called to me, pointing to the bench. I sat down on the hard wooden bench. I didn't have anything to do. There weren't any books or magazines spread out like I was at Dr. Cohn's office. So I watched the clock and read all the signs on the walls. I found out that I was in the emergency section of the hospital. After a while, the nurse came back. She gave me some paper and crayons. "Here you are. Be a good boy and draw some pictures. Your mother will be out soon." I wondered if she knew about Dribble, and that's why she was trying to be nice to me. I didn't feel like drawing any pictures. I wonder what they were doing to Fudge in there. Maybe he wasn't such a bad little guy after all. I remember that Jimmy Fargo's little cousin once swallowed the most valuable rock in Jimmy's collection. My mother told me that when I was a little kid, I swallowed a quarter. Still, a quarter's not like a turtle. I watched the clock on the wall for an hour and 10 minutes. Then, the door opened. My mother stepped out with Dr. Cohn. I was surprised to see him. I didn't know that he worked in the hospital. "Hello, Peter," he said. "Hello, Dr. Cohn. Did you get my turtle?" Not yet, Peter, but I do have something to show you. Here are some x-rays of your brother." I studied the x-rays as Dr. Cohn pointed out things to me. "You see, there's your turtle right over there." I looked hard. "Will Tribble be in there forever?" I asked. "No, definitely not. We'll get him out. We'll We will give Fudge some medicine already. That should do the trick nicely. What kind of medicine? I said. What trick? Castor oil, Peter, my mother said. Fudge took castor oil and lots of milk of magnesia and prune juice too. Lots of that. All those things will help to get dribble out of Fudge's tummy. We'll just have to wait, Dr. Cohn said. Probably until tomorrow or the day after. Fudge will have to spend the night here. But I don't think he's going to be swallowing anything that he isn't supposed to be swallowing from now on. How about Dribble? I asked. Will Dribble be all right? My mother and Dr. Cohn looked at each other. I knew the answer before he shook his head and said, I think you have to get a new turtle, Peter. I don't want a new turtle, I said. Tears came to my eyes, and I was embarrassed, and I wiped them away with the back of my hand. Then my nose started to run, and I had to sniffle. I want Dribble, I said. It's the only turtle that I want. Mother took me home in a taxi. She told me my father was on his way to the hospital to be with Fudge. When we got home, she made me lamb chops for dinner, but I wasn't very hungry. My father came home late that night. I was still up. My father looked gloomy and he whispered to my mother, Not yet, nothing yet. The next day was Saturday, no school. I spent the whole day in the hospital waiting room. There were plenty of people around, and magazines and books too. It wasn't like the harsh bench in the emergency hallway. It was more like a living room. I told everybody that my brother ate my turtle. They looked at me kind of funny, but nobody ever said they were sorry to hear about my turtle. Never once. My mother joined me for supper at the hospital coffee shop. I ordered a hamburger, but I left most of it because right in the middle of supper, my mother told me that if the medicine didn't work soon, Fudge might have to have an operation to get Dribble out of him. My mother didn't eat anything. That night, my grandmother came to stay with me. My mother and father stayed at the hospital with Fudge. Things were pretty dreary at home. Every hour, the phone rang. It was my mother calling from the hospital to report. Not yet, I see, Grandma repeated. Nothing happening yet. I was miserable. I was lonely. Grandma didn't notice. I even missed Fudge banging his pots and pans together. In the middle of the night, the phone rang again. It woke me up and I crept into the hallway to hear what was going on. Whoopee! Grandma shouted. It's out! Good news at last! She hung up and turned to me. The medicine finally worked, Peter. All that castor oil and milk of magnesia and prune juice finally worked. The turtle is out. Alive or dead? I asked. Peter, Warren Hatcher, what a question, Mother shouted. So, my brother had no longer had a turtle inside of him, and I no longer had a turtle. I didn't like Fudge so much as I thought I did before the phone rang. The next morning, Fudge came home from the hospital. My father carried him to the apartment. My mother's arms were loaded with presents, all for Fudge. My mother put the presents down and kissed him. She said, Fudgy can have anything he wants, anything at all. Mommy is so happy that baby's all better. It was disgusting. Presents and kisses and attention for Fudge? I couldn't even look at him. He was having fun. He probably wasn't even sorry that he ate my turtle. That night, my father came home with the biggest box of all. It wasn't wrapped up or anything, but I knew it was another present. I turned away from my father. Peter, he said, this box is a surprise for you. Oh, my eyes watering. I don't want another turtle, I said. I don't think I can make me feel better with another turtle because you can't. Who said anything about a turtle, son? Dad asked. You see, Peter, your mother and I think you've been a good sport about the whole situation. After all, Dribble was your pet. I looked up. Could I be hearing right? Did they really remember about me and Dribble? Put my hand inside of the box. I felt something warm and soft and furry. I knew it was a dog, but I pretended to be surprised when he jumped up on my lap and he licked me. Fudge cried, "Woo, doggies! Doggy, see, doggy!" He ran over and he grabbed the doggy's tail. Fudge, my father said, taking him away. This is your brother's dog. Maybe someday you'll have a dog of your own, but this one belongs to Peter. Do you understand? Fudge nodded. Peter's dog. That's right, my father said. Peter's dog. Then he turned to me. And just to be sure, son, he said, we got a dog that is going to grow quite big, much too big for your brother to swallow. We all laughed. My dog was neat. I named him Turtle to remind me. The end. Oh, wow. That last chapter was crazy, right? He ate the turtle. Doggy, is the axles. Yes, exactly. And so you guys can just imagine, you get attached. But that is our end of Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing. If you liked that, Judy Blume has a ton of other books. And let's see if she has a listing. Sometimes they have a listing of the other books that are related, but some of the other ones that she has, and of course, oh no, I put them back. Otherwise known as Sheila the Great. That is another one. And this talks about Sheila, who is in Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing. And there's also books called, here we go. Super Fudge. Super Fudge is like the one that comes right after this. Okay, so there's more adventures about Super Fudge. And then there's Fudge-a-mania. Fudge-a-mania is another one. And then this one then is otherwise known as Sheila the Great. Okay, so there are three books talking about fudge. So it's Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing. I just lost it again. Super Fudge and Fudge-a-mania. So anyway, those are the books. So let's go ahead and looking at the time, we're going to be just doing our closing song today, because that one took a little bit longer trying to get through the fudge in the turtle episode. Tomorrow, remember tomorrow, we're going to be starting a picture book every day. So each day is going to be a different book. And so I thought you guys are really going to enjoy that. Also, tomorrow, Thursday is going to be, sorry. Change of plans. Not tomorrow. Thursday, there is not going to be Books with Mrs. Brickson. I have a meeting. Sorry about that. I'll put that on the Facebook thing. I'll send a notification. But Friday starts our picture books. And then tomorrow is supposed to be a high of 67 degrees. So get outside. Make sure you get outside. So with that, let us begin. All right. So remember, Friday. Come back here Friday. Friday. Get outside. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. See you later.